So that although at 71.41% sounds like a lot of money, we increased it from $2,000 to $5,000.
Yeah.
So it's not.
And that was I set the bar for $5,000 or 15%. So some of them you might not think are significant, but I just wanted to, had to set some criteria. Human resources, we increased retirement leave reimbursements by 35.2%, which is almost $400,000. And this was to increase the PSPRS payment to $1.468 million. So we can start paying our unfunded liability off. Actually, continue, I should say. Planning and zoning, we increased contracted services by 609%, which is $390,000. And this is to update subdivision regulations, general plan update, and master plan for 2 areas. One being the Horseshoe Bend, sort of Highway 89-98 area, and the second, the former golf course area. In community development, we increased contracted services by 176.2%, which is $185,000. This does include the land acquisition and clearing, Block 17 street and streetscape planning, and designed concept for the Para Club. So that's one of the things I wanted to talk to council about. When I've been talking to Gretchen Kitchell with SRP, talking about, do we have an opportunity to have Para Club donated to the city? She said if we really are asking them to do that, then we need to probably have a clear vision and put our best foot forward. So we've included the money, but I'll leave that for discussion this afternoon. Community development, we increased the visitor center funding by 11.4%, $8,000, based on their request and a community development advisory board recommendation. One more page. Community development, we increased marketing and promotion by 23%, which is $14,400 due to increased cost and additional marketing opportunities. We also, in community development, increased personnel expenditures. Oh, that's not right. We increased the expenditure for the funding for Lake Powell Chamber of Commerce based on their request and the Community Development Advisory Board recommendation. For community development, we also added Horseshoe Bend expenditure line of $250,000, and that's in anticipation of partnership fee sharing and third-party collection costs. We have money to offset that in revenue. Public Works, Central Garage increased tires by 50%, $5,000 for anticipated fire truck tire replacement. And in Public Works Park Maintenance, we increased contracted services by over 3,000% for an aquatic study, which is a part of the Parks Master Plan, and that's $75,000. And then we increased golf course maintenance equipment repair line item by $13,000 to repair an aerator at the golf course. HERF. The budget utilizes approximately just under $2.8 million of the current $2.9 million fund balance. Revenue has decreased by 4.3%, or $37,000, almost $38,000. And this also includes a transfer to capital projects of $1,970,000 for equipment and street improvements.
What is the total balance in that fund now?
It's $2.9 million,
Okay.
approximately. Do you have the exact number?
I have it starting right now at 2.97 million.
2.97 million. And this is just a budget overview that shows the revenue, expense, transfers in and out of the HERF fund. And it shows that we'll be utilizing $497 of fund balance, should you move forward with this. Debt service is showing revenue of just under 3.5 million and expense of just under 2.9 million. When we look at the debt service and revenue expenses, we've got 158,000 in revenue. We've got approximately $1.4 million in expense and a transfer in of 3.3, just over $3.3 million. And then a transfer out of $1.468 million, which is, so we're transferring money from the general fund into the debt service because that's what how the ordinance reads. And then we're transferring that PSPRS payment out of debt service.
Yes.
So I've got some great news. In fiscal year 19, we will make our final transfer into the Series 2011 bond fund, and we will have sufficient funding for all remaining payments and the 2021 payoff. So we've come a long way in 4 years. As you know, we've been putting 85% of 1% of sales tax towards this to ensure that we'll be able to pay off the debt, and we will have no problem doing that.
Well, in what month do you think project that'll? You say
We
next
just have to make a basically $5 million transfer in July, and we'll have the money set aside.
FYI, I'm going to try to move in a direction to reorganize this existing ordinance that applies 85% and 15% of 1%. And my thought is first to rename Fund 20 from Debt Fund to Debt and Pension Reserve. Then change the ordinance to reflect that basis that the debt fund, the 1%, third 1%, to be distributed 50% to debt and pension reserve and 50% to capital projects reserve. That way, that's going to provide about $1.5 million to continue to pay down PSPRS and about $1.5 million to push to capital projects. Once PSPRS is balanced to a zero balance, which will take about 2.5 years, at that point, we can revisit that and just maintain that reserve for our pension fund, because that's always going to have fluctuations. There's going to be years where we're $200,000 or $300,000 shy of what the projections were, and there's always going to be a need to draw upon that. And as also
Paying it forward.
to where we always are in the black or meeting our pension liability. And that's important to me because we see so many cities in trouble that haven't addressed their responsibilities in their pension. And to me, I think that the prudent thing to do is to make sure we've got the tools in place that guarantee those pensions are solid and they're funded going forward, with or without us. Mm-hmm. The third thing would be required is we'll have to revisit that same ordinance to, because that sunsets, the extra 2% sunsets in 2021. But it's just some thoughts that I've got, and I thought I would work with the city attorney to draft that language and bring it forward.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Okay, so capital. This budget represents your commitment to capital projects and equipment and just under $11.9 million has been budgeted. And this is, again, just a snapshot of the revenue expense transfers in and out. And it does show that we will be utilizing about $1.4 million of the fund balance, which will bring our fund balance down to approximately $214,000. The capital outlay by category has 29% of funding comes from highway user revenue funds, 34% comes from the airport, 20% community development, and 13% public works. And these are the actual projects that we have moving forward. So we have Horseshoe Bend, Rim Trail improvements, Horseshoe Bend construction management, that's to pay them to do construction oversight and bidding of documents, et cetera. Community development, block grant, restrooms, and the playground. The skate park, Horseshoe Bend Trail. And then in the fire department, we have budgeted for mobile radios, portable radios, and radio repeater, and SCBA. And that is not just the first half.
The whole thing.
Yeah, that's the whole thing. We had originally broke it down, but there were some reasons why we couldn't buy half this year and half next year. And if you have questions, Jeff will be happy to answer those for you. Capital projects under general government, we have a vehicle. As you know, we don't pay staff for mileage, but we make vehicles available for use on city business. For the golf course, we've got mower leases, a utility vehicle, and Planet aerator budgeted. For IT, we have a phone system. We're replacing our phone system. It's outdated. In the magistrate, we've budgeted $15,000 for security updates. In the police department, we have $32,000 for radio system and a new patrol vehicle. In public works, we've got block 17 maintenance. And that might be the improvements after we do the planning for Block 17. We have community center patio access for $12,000. In central garage, we have a F450 4x4 cab and chassis. In park maintenance, we have John C. Page Memorial Park construction for almost $1 million, design for $50,000. A Dingo tractor for $42,000. Grandview Knoll for $150,000, and shade structures for the sports complex of $35,000. In streets, we have a dump truck. We have $120,000 for, that's actually towards the skate park. Is that correct? The 120?
That was kind of miscellaneous.
Miscellaneous projects?
Improvements, yeah.
Okay.
Streets capital projects?
Stormwater improvements, we have $50,000 budgeted. $1.6 million for the completion of 10th Avenue, and $1.5 million for other streets as council approves. In the cemetery, we have $15,000 for a mower, $40,000 for east side curb, and $75,000 for parking lot expansion, and a $4 million main apron rehab construction project at the airport. This slide shows a comparison between where the dollars are being spent between equipment and improvements. And you can see that it's primarily infrastructure improvements. Significant changes to the airport fund. It includes $100,000 transfer to capital projects and a $205,000 debt service payment for the airport. That
What is
just,
the debt service for?
we have a bond,
Bond.
an airport bond.
Paying
And it's
its
close to
paying
being
its
paid
share
off. How
of the
many more
airport.
years?
I believe that's about the same time as the other one.
Yeah, it's just a few years left.
Didn't roll it into the 2011, we didn't roll it into the 2011 series.
It was part of a 2006 or something.
Yeah, because it
or
was
older
pretty well
than that.
self-sustained with the
2004,
airport
I think.
revenue.
Okay.
And again, this is just a snapshot of revenue, expenses, it transfers in and out of the airport. And finally, there were no significant or notable changes in the Judicial Collection Enhancement Fund, the Donation Fund, the Land Fund, the Perpetual Care Fund, or the Volunteer Fire Pension Fund. So with that, I'll stand for questions. Staff is also here and happy to answer any questions you might have, in case you want to know more about the Dingo tractor or any of the projects that are being planned.
Yeah, one on the parking lot expansion at the cemetery. I don't remember discussing that one. But refresh me. What are we doing there?
Kyle, do you want to come up and talk about the?
Yeah.
And
If I missed it, I apologize. I don't want to belabor the point. I just didn't know we were needing expansion at the parking lot down there.
Yeah, basically, if you've been down the cemetery, we're going to be expanding to the west half. We've already established the new lots, if you will, for the cemetery. Just vaguely, we've enclosed in the fence, and so we're going to expand the parking lot and create that parking space in there.
Is there a need for that?
Not necessarily, but surprise.
Alien invasion. No feedback, huh?
One of the things that we do experience is we get some fairly large funerals, and at any given time, you'll go down there. In fact, we've been doing about, say, we've seen as many as 3 funerals in a weekend before, between Friday and Saturday. So we're seeing kind of an increase in that, and so if you're down there, you'll see that a lot of these families are parking in that dirt portion. It's already there; they're just parking there. So this improvement would be a majority of the public works providing the labor, pulling out the material lane in the AV, and then contracting with the contractor to do the asphalt.
And just so you know, these aren't competing dollars. It has its own revenue fund.
Right. I was just, okay.
So those funds do come out of the perpetual fund or?
So yes.
Yes.
I have a couple questions, Mr. Mayor, when you're
Yes.
whenever you're.
Go ahead.
On the CUP line item, I know it's not much, but it looked like it was kind of doubled from 10,000 to 20,000. I was kind of wondering, after our ordinance last week, and we're not going to be collecting CUPs, because it seems like the majority of those were based off of vacation rentals. If you have any thoughts,
Can you tell me what page you're on?
I just took notes.
Oh, okay.
I think revenue.
Christy, can you answer that?
It is on page 5 of the revenue stream, and it's about 1 inch down from the top, General Fund 10, and it's $32,94,000.
Yeah.
Is that it?
Yep. Yeah. So it went from 10,000 to 22,000. I was wondering if you think that's still going to be accurate, since we're not going to be collecting CUPs anymore.
Probably change that.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure what it's gonna look like.
I'm going to guess, was it based on history?
It's
Yeah,
based on
okay.
Before that.
projection, historical projections, so we can lower that.
And then the Horseshoe Bend entrance fee, the $500,000, is that, when are we predicting to start collecting, I guess?
We don't know. That's a placeholder. We're still in discussions, and we're going to have an executive session tonight, and Councilmember Warner and the mayor are going to update you on the discussions we're having. This is really a placeholder because we don't know when those may be collected, but we
Okay.
have to have it in and out, so we have
Yep.
money coming in and money going out.
But along with that item, we talked and you said it was money in and out, but I can only find half of the money going out.
Well, the other money is going out into projects.
Okay, so in
You've
my...
got $1.6 million in,
Right, but I'm just a little nervous that we're being a little bit optimistic in thinking that we're going to be at that position to realize $500,000. Although if we are able to get the construction done on schedule and we are able to, work out the arrangements with MPS, and perhaps we could, but it's
you want me
sort
to
of-
lower this by 250,000?
Well, it sort of deflates and inflates numbers. We're using this 250,000 as capital, and it's not there. It may not be there. So in reality, it's not coming out of it's coming out of capital, but in reality, it's $250,000 shorter in the general fund transfer. It's not real money, and if we don't collect it.
If we don't collect it, right.
Yeah, so I'm kind of a little nervous if,
Well, we can make those line items the same if you prefer.
I think we ought to just hope for the best and plan for the worst.
Okay?
Don't show any revenue, don't show the 250,000 split, and...
But then we can't pay it out. If we collect $1 million, but we haven't budgeted any expenditure,
Expenses,
we
yeah.
can't,
We can't pay
money
park
out.
service? I'm all right with
We can't pay
that.
to have people
these are
collect the money.
placeholders, and that's why,
Okay.
because we can't
But it's,
amend the budget later. So if you want them to match, we can do that.
I think they should match.
Okay.
Because you're taking 250,000 of this and being optimistic that it's going to be capital improvement. If we don't collect any money at all, then that's not real. So if you're going to put it in as a placeholder, put it in 500, out 500.
Okay. We can make that change.
Me feel better.
Did you have something else?
Then on the 20 debt service fund, interest income is up 788%, 40,000. So I was wondering if that was real?
Where are you on, is that on,
Because we continue to build that, that fund with the 85% of 1%. So this is based on,
the debt service?
Okay, so we should have that much
because
okay,
we've
interest. Okay.
got all that money we have put aside.
And then the last thing was land sales, $1 billion. Is that in the works, or is that a placeholder? Is that a, we're
Well,
hoping?
no, but we have the potential of two pieces of property that we are already aware of. So it's a pretty conservative number, but I felt comfortable with the $1 million.
But both of those, and this is probably directed to Kim, are going to require pretty significant zoning changes, and quite a bit of time's going to go through before we can get qualified to get that property sold. So does it look likely we're going to get that accomplished before the end of this fiscal year?
It's not this fiscal year.
I know, next fiscal year. Well, I've seen
I certainly hope
the
so.
pace of government, and it
I
doesn't
certainly
seem to
hope
work
so.
that way.
And again, if it doesn't come in, then that money isn't.
But we're showing
To
that money
capital.
as revenue again to the capital projects fund.
Yep.
And we're showing $1 million less in transfers from the general fund. So that disturbs me, because I think we're just kind of showing a very optimistic look in revenue, and are we really, and we're using every dime of that, pretty much.
Well, we've got, I think $1 million is a conservative number. I'm not worried about it. At the very least, we've got the Hilton Garden sale, that's over 500,000. If we sell one parcel for, I don't know that it's going to be 500,000, but the 3-acre parcel was 500,000. So what will a 21-acre parcel be valued at? I don't know. But,
Okay.
That's all I had. Thank you.
Any other questions, council?
yeah, just always looking at the big numbers, and especially with insurance. On that industrial insurance, page 6 on the general fund, it jumped up 28. I know we've increased personnel, but why is that $75,000 more from last year to this year? industrial insurance. What,
I'm sorry, where are you?
page 6?
Of the
The
of the
change.
slides.
I think he's on the presentation.
Oh,
Sorry, yeah.
okay.
I'm sorry,
Sorry.
Crystal. I apologize. Yeah.
So the increase to the,
The industrial
industrial-
insurance, yeah.
you want to talk about?
So the industrial insurance went up, you're correct, because we had salary increases primarily, based on salary. And we also had claims. Our EMOD also went up from 1.25 to 1.37, I believe, based on
Those claims.
those claims. So that all comes at a cost. So that's why we want to educate, do safety, more safety type training within the departments to, kind of curb that, bring that down, kind of concentrate on that EMOD, bringing that down. That's a focus for next year. But that's how it laid out pretty much, is between salaries and our EMOD increasing. And everything that you see here is just for the city of Page. The utility is on top
Separate,
of
huh?
that.
So did we have an abnormal number of claims this year? Was it
About 17 last year.
last year?
And then it depends on the type and the amount of money that's paid out of the severity of the claims.
I know, maybe you don't know, but on average, how many claims do we have a year? Or, I mean, did we see a big spike, or is there something that's going on
I
that's,
think there were a couple of significant ones this last year that were high dollar.
okay, so there were a couple outliers.
Yes.
Do we have a formal return to work policy associated with medical injury? Do we have a light duty policy that puts people in place on other positions? We do.
We do. We encourage that. Return to work. We have several employees that will return to work on light duty, and through doctors making sure that we have one right now, that return to work on light duty until they're released to
Okay.
full duty.
And does that policy allow for a crossover in departmentation? Okay, good.
Crystal, so if this proposed budget, what would we end up in our contingency fund after having to utilize fund balances?
So in which fund? So if you go to the page,
Reserve.
if you go to the summary by fund,
Yeah.
you can see that we'll be utilizing almost $6 million of cash balance. So depending on the fund, the general fund, we'll be using almost 2.2 million. And for the HERF fund, almost 8 million. And capital project fund, 1.5 million. So those are the largest, where we're
largest.
expending more than we have.
Well, I'm a little nervous. I guess if we have a structure here, I guess it might be that we address any issues related to revenue and then perhaps go on to expenses or capital or something like that. So we focus
Right.
on one.
I got you.
And I don't know, Mayor, if you want to, what order you want to go in, but I've got notes pretty much on capital and on expense. We've covered income.
Do you want to,
Well,
it all right with
capital
council?
are the big dollar things, so
Go with
can we
capital.
start there?
Yeah.
yeah,
I
go over
like that
capital and
structure.
and some of those others might.
That's a good format.
Okay, so does anyone have any other question on capital?
I do. Well, first off, I mean, I would love to see us accomplish all of these things. I'm a little nervous with drawing down our fund balances to the point where we're pulling our general fund reserve. And, my thought was, I thought we had sort of agreed on a threshold of 12 million reserve, kind of hold that number. We can't get everything done and keep that.
Right.
Well, I thought we had conversation that we wanted to get things done, and we wanted to put a lot of emphasis in getting streets done and stuff. We're talking about almost $5 million in streets alone.
No, I agree.
We were
I
going
agree,
to
but
pay
I
down,
guess,
bring down our reserve a little bit below that 12 million. I thought we
Well-
looked at a number of maybe bringing it down to like 9 or something like, didn't we have a workshop on that?
Well, what came out of that workshop was that you wanted the cash balance to be equivalent of one-year general fund.
Yes.
So this actually brings it down to about 10 million in real round numbers. And our expenses are about 15 million. So this would bring it down to about approximately 66% or 2/3.
Well, I guess where I'm at is that with the Horseshoe Bend, which is sort of a primary we have to do, I'm just saying that maybe there's some things we're going to have to push into 2020 because we just don't have enough to get everything done that we want. And I still think that two things we need to protect. We need to make sure that we're frugal in our reserve because we don't know what the market's going to bear. We don't know what the impact on NGS is going to have. So I think we need to be a little cautious that we burn up our reserves just because we have too full of a plate. So there's a few things that I think we can probably look at. Obviously, we want to move, light speed ahead with Horseshoe Bend because the sooner we get those improvements made, the sooner they can be utilized and the sooner we can get a recapture on that investment. A couple of things.
So you're looking at the capital expense?
Yeah, I'm looking at capital.
Okay, maybe we
So-
can all get to the capital expense part. Okay, under
And
capital projects.
I think that it's in your notebook too. There's a whole page on capital, I believe, in there. Didn't you add that? Maybe not.
On a slide? It's on a slide. Well, the biggest items are on a
Three
slide.
slides.
So a few things come to mind.
Actually,
One
4.
is if we can hold another year on the general services vehicle. I don't know how many we have. I know the one we have is probably a little,
Well, the problem is, I don't mind holding on the general services vehicle, but what I would ask then is that you reimburse for mileage, because usually when I want to go out of town, there isn't a vehicle available. And so we're asking our employees and I'll pay the gas on my car if I go to Phoenix. But when you're talking about day-to-day meetings, there's no compensation for those if they're not available
well, I'd
to
rather
staff.
see that brought forward. I'd rather see the compensation on travel and what their compensation is and put that in place before I buy another vehicle.
Okay,
Insurance
well,
and
because
car
that was
everything.
the opposite of the direction that we've had in the past.
Well, I don't know
so-
those, I remember ever really.
We've got 3 very old cars that are available
This is
to,
an 05.
No, I understand, but on the same token, looking at everything we're trying to accomplish, I'd rather pay the employee a fair return on their personal vehicle. And more often than not, they'd prefer to probably take their own car than,
Gotcha.
So
yeah, if they were reimbursed at the IRS rate, I think most people would.
why don't you see if we can't get something to bring forward and let's look at it.
Our current travel policy has that mileage reimbursement as an addendum in there, but the priority is to use a city vehicle, because for a trip to go to Flagstaff for a day's meeting, you're going to reimburse an employee $150 just to go to Flagstaff and back.
Well, maybe the policy is a little too